A better route. Chapter 74. A little less than 2 years had passed in the shinobi world and things were starting to pick up quite a bit. No matter where you were, it seemed like something major was happening. Team Uchiha and Jiraiya had been searching every Akatsuki base that Haiden had given them and had yet to find anything. The list had almost 100 different locations that were scattered all around the world. It wasn't getting to all of the locations that made it so difficult, it was the fact that several of them were in different countries and villages that required special permission to go into. Just stepping right into them could lead the Hidden Leaf into a war. While they could just pretend they weren't ninjas and head into the villages scot-free, if the Akatsuki was there and they got into a major fight, the villages were more than likely to find out. Just to search the bases in those areas they had to wait until they could get all the proper documentation. They'd destroyed an base that was empty and had taken out anything that could be useful to them before they did so. There weren't many bases left, which meant that they were starting to close in. Obito grew more and more impatient with each base they found. His son had turned 16 and he hadn't even been there for it. Speaking of Kakashi, he was having a rather interesting time with the Akatsuki. A lot of his time had been spent training with his wood release, which he'd become very good with. While he was no first Hokage, he could at least perform several jutsus with it. He'd made several jokes with Kisame about him and Tenaki, which always caused the two to try and kill him. Deidara found him downright annoying and had almost blown him up few times now. Sasori actually liked him quite a bit as he could actually discuss puppets with him. Granted, he didn't actually know how to make a puppet, but he did know how to talk strategy about them at least. He and Konan continued to help keep the Jinchurikis alive after their extraction. They'd gained 3 more tailed beasts over the past 2 years. Torai called in the holder of the 3 tails because the revolution had been picking up speed, especially since Zabuza and Haku had joined back up, and that Jinchuriki was the Mizukage. While he survived the extraction, Tori had killed him to make sure that he couldn't go back and confuse the hidden mist when he had no memory. Also, they'd gotten the 2-tailed beast from the hidden rock village and sent them back after they were finished, a move which confused the hell out of the hidden rock. It had been very eventful for the Akatsuki, all right. Then there was 3 Jinchurikis and their training. Like Kakashi, they'd turned 16 and in those 2 years they'd been doing a hell of a lot of training. Naruto had been learning how to make hands with his chakra that he could use to make Razengans and other jutsus as well. He'd also been training with his wind chakra, having learned several new wind jutsu over the past couple of years. His favorite was one that his family had sent him from his father's jutsu library, the Cyclone Shuriken. Apparently it was designed to be combined with the Rasengan when his control over wind chakra got good enough. However, there wasn't anyone in the hidden cloud that was good enough with wind jutsu to actually teach him how to control it on that level, so he'd have to wait until he got back home to continue on with it. Fu had been doing quite well herself, as she was now able to activate her wings for over an hour and could give herself a hard exoskeleton on different parts of her body that could be used as armor. She'd been learning how to use dust reals from her tenant as well, which only made her even stronger. Gaara's progress wasn't quite as obvious as his friends, but he had still grown quite a bit. He was able to make massive creatures out of sand and control them, along with his defense becoming even stronger than it had before. To be honest, he wasn't sure even Rock Lee could keep up with his sand at this point. It had been an eventful 2 years for everyone indeed, and it was only going to get more interesting as things went on. Kakashi walked around the Akatsuki base and thought about the past few years. It was 3 years ago today that he'd left his home, and there were still things about it that missed. His family, his friends, his village. So many things that he wasn't sure if he could ever get back. Had he made the right choice? Should he have stayed in the Hidden Leaf? These questions ran through his mind almost every day now. His thoughts were interrupted when Konan walked up behind him, feeling homesick. Kakashi-kun? Kakashi smiled under his mask. She'd taken to calling him that over the past year as the two had grown very close. As much as she had tried to fight it, she'd found herself caring deeply for her fellow Akatsuki member, Hey Konan-chan. Yeah, Kakashi is feeling kind of homesick. It was 3 years ago today that he left home. Things have really changed, you know. Conan knew all about things changing. Yes, I suppose they have. Although I admit things seem to be looking up. Kakashi raised his eyebrow. What do you mean? Conan smiled gently at him. You've really managed to make a difference here, Kakashi. I mean, you've saved people's lives, at least 3 of those Jinchurikis anyways. You're different from the rest of them, Kakashi. There's still kindness in your eyes. You haven't lost your faith in this. Everything you've done isn't out of rage, it's out of you trying to do what's right. Kakashi wasn't used to getting so much praise around here. Stop it, you're making Kakashi blush. Conan laughed. You can't exactly tell with the mask on. Why do you wear it anyways? Kakashi shrugged. It just kind of became something Kakashi did after he heard the guy he was named after War 1. Do you want him to take it off? Conan was very tempted. Actually, yes, I would. Just long enough to see your face. Kakashi pulled his mask down and Conan blushed a little bit. He may have been 17 years younger than her, but she was looking at the face of a man. A very handsome man at that. Conan looked into his eyes. You've got that same look in your eyes that he had. You could see Kakashi blushing this time. Who had? Conan whispered, Nagato, and Yahiko. You're so kind, like they were. Kakashi started to get a strange feeling. Conan-chan, what are you talking about? Conan started to lean in close to him. You've made me feel something I haven't felt in years. She suddenly backed away. But this isn't right. I'm old enough to be your mother. Kakashi walked towards her. Kakashi doesn't care. Conan jumped a little when he said that. He continued on, Conan-chan, you've been Kakashi's favorite thing about this place. You made him feel like he did with Ino again. Conan wasn't sure what came over her, but she leaned in and kissed Kakashi passionately. Kakashi kissed back, and before long he found himself being led to her bedroom. He had a feeling he knew what Conan wanted to do. Conan-chan, Kakashi's never done anything like this before. Conan gave him a sexy smile. Don't worry, I'll lead. Obito looked out at the hidden rain village and felt the most confident about any place they'd been so far. It had taken them almost 2 months to get clearance to go into the hidden rain, which is why Obito had felt so confident about this village. They clearly had something to hide. Jiraiya had been trying to get spies in here for years, but he'd never been able to. They'd set Sasuke up in hotel room as they never let him come into the Akatsuki bases. That was too dangerous for him. Even having Itachi there made them a little nervous. Looking over the map once more, Obito pointed towards a small gap in one of the pipes. If we go through this pipe we should hit the base in a few miles. You guys ready? They all nodded and headed inside with a strange creature watching them from the distance. Well, Leader Sama's gonna wanna know about this. I'd say things just got a little interesting around here. Conan looked over at her lover lying next to her in bed. She really didn't know what had come over here, but something about being with Kakashi just made him happy. Leaning into his ear, she whispered, Do you enjoy your first time, Kakashi-kun? Kakashi couldn't believe she even had to ask. Conan-chan, that was amazing. Have you ever done that before? Conan thought back to when she was younger. Yes, with Nagato and Yahiko. Not at the same time, of course. I loved both of them, but they're gone now. Only pain remains. Kakashi sat up in bed. Wait, you mean pain is really? Conan figured it was time he knew. At one time his name was Nagato, although the paths you see aren't really him. The lead one used to be Yahiko, but he's just an empty shell now. Nagato was forced to kill him to save my life and he lost his mind shortly after that. I could never bring myself to leave him alone with that woman, so I've stayed and helped him. Kakashi had to ask her, you said you loved Nagato and Yahiko. Do you love Kakashi too? Konan pulled the covers off of herself, which made Kakashi blush as she still wasn't wearing any clothes. I never thought I'd say this again, but yes, Kakashi-kun, I love you. Kakashi pulled her close to him. Good, because Kakashi loves you too. Konan was happy and yet terrified at the same time, even though I'm almost twice your age. You don't wish you could have had Ino instead? Kakashi sighed. There'll always be a special place in Kakashi's heart for Ino, but he has to move on. It doesn't matter how old you are, only how we feel about each other. Konan couldn't remember the last time she'd been this happy. They laid there next each other with blissful smiles on their faces. While they knew there would be hardship to come, they didn't care for now. They had each other. Tuhiai thought over the progress they'd made so far and was actually starting to feel like this plan could work. They had almost half of the tailed beasts and Kisame and Teneki were in the process of obtaining the 6 tails. Zetsu came into the room with a nervous look on his face. Tuhiya, we've got visitors. It's Obito and one of the other Uchiha with the Toad Sage. Tuhiya immediately came to attention. Her son was one of the most powerful ninjas in the world and Jiraiya wasn't far behind. How strong is the other Uchiha? Zetsu shrugged. He's got the Mangekyo Sharingan, so he's not slouch. Tuhiya's ears perked up. Really? Why am I just hearing about this now? Zetsu hadn't really thought to tell her, didn't think it mattered. Tuhiya chuckled. Well, it does. I'm going to make my leave with my grandson, have the others hold them off for now. As for you, Zetsu, I want you to capture Itachi. Zetsu didn't question it, dead or alive. Tuhiya had a sinister plan in mind, alive if it's not too much trouble.